Hi guys, so welcome to the final part of our conversation on global variables, local variables, private and public accessibility in Python, right? And the focus is on the Python function and the idea of local and global variables. Now, the final part of this is modifying a global variable. And this is where an interesting thing comes in, which is the global keyword. A lot of learners see the global keyword and it kind of confuses them or confounds them. And so the idea now is to demystify the global keyword. Hopefully the first two videos put context to the idea of the global and local variable when it comes to the Python function. Now, we're going to create a scenario that makes it necessary to use a global keyword. So the first thing I'll do is to create a variable called score. Now this is a global variable, so which is a variable that's on its own and minding its own business. And so this is a global variable. Then I go on to create a function. I call this increase underscore score. Now, the idea for this is we want to have a function that returns increased score, right? And then we're going to do that. Now, with this, I want a situation where I have score and I use the plus equal to operator and say 10. So this is it, right? Now, if I come over here and I write increase score, right? You can see that I have a situation where it says cannot access local variable score where it is not associated with a value, right? And I think to myself, I want to take advantage of this global variable since I now have this unbounded local error. So what do I do to myself? I now say, okay, cool. Since if I print score, right, the score is 0, and which is pretty good for me to initialize what I want to do. So I come over here and I introduce the global keyword. Now with the global keyword, I say I want to declare that we are now using, that we can use this guy. It's like getting the permission to use this guy inside here. So with this, we declare we are using the global variable. Right? So we declare that we're using this guy. So now when I run this and I bring this over here, you see that it works. And you get me. So this now becomes 10. Do you see that? Now, what this has done is with the declaration by the introduction of this, now brings a relationship with what we have here and what we have going on in here. Right. So that's one part of it. Now, another interesting question would be when is it the best time to use this, right? So question is when to use each, which is local global variables. Now, one thing we can do is we can use a global variable to store data that needs to be shared across functions, right? So global right for we can store data that needs to be shared across functions. Yep, across functions, right? A perfect one is like a configuration settings, right? Then for local, well, temporary variables only used within a function, right? So temporary variables only used only within a function. So these are situations where, for instance, you have a loop or something of that nature. Now, a best practice is typically to avoid excessive global variables because they can make code very hard to debug, right? So that's typically what we've done. Again, for summary, a global variable, entire program, a local variable, only inside a function, right? And for global variables, it has a lifetime like scope, right? And we introduce a global keyword to modify these scopes, right? So that's typically what it is. So take your time and watch these 3 videos, right? And these 3 videos means just 3 series that I've introduced here, which is a local, another start of here, which is a global variable to a local variable, and then we talked about local versus global, which is in one video with this 2 are in one video. And then we talked about the final one, modifying a global variable, where we introduced the global keyword, right? So take your time. If this brings a type of a confusion, well, here are the videos that help,